this one prompt I did was told it to examine my memories and past conversations and find hidden negative loops that it can observe me in. And what it put out like shook me up for like 2 days. It was such a cold, hard, like blunt truth that I was speechless. And then I went and visited my buddy after that, and I like read it to him, and he's like, "Dude, if you spent 2 years in therapy and got that as a result, that would have been time worth and money worth spent." He said, "I I've known you for 15 years, and that was 98% accurate."
Welcome back to another episode of the We Live to Build podcast. Today's guest is Joshua Hale, the owner of JH Media and Consulting, an American company that focuses on teaching businesses how to take advantage of AI in order to optimize the way their business runs. In this conversation, we talked about how he views clients' potential for success, what he teaches clients, how he does it, why he does it, and so much more. If you like the idea of using AI in your business, you will learn from this episode. So let's get to it. Why do you spend your time consulting businesses as the thing you focus on?
Well, I really see it as one of the most powerful pillars that we could be standing on. Being able to find out, what you're good at, what you can't turn off, just this natural ability, and coupling that with how to make money, I think creates this foundation that you can be excited about getting up each day and being able to like support your family, not be in a job where you have to sacrifice your values, work in the grind and not living up to your potential.
I also like consulting because then it's not my business. I don't have to do anything for it. It's just, if they take my advice, they take my advice. If they don't, they don't. But either way, I get paid. Hopefully they take the advice.
One of my like superpowers that I can't turn off. I love problem solving. If you give me a blank piece of paper and tell me to, come up with a great idea, I kind of freeze. But if you bring me a bunch of, problems and tell me about your business, my brain just kicks on, and, the rest is, consulting history.
So why is it that you want to focus on AI consulting when it's such a nascent industry and there's so much education that has to happen because of the fact that like people that are kind of aware but need education are one of the hardest people to attract?
Yes, thank you for pointing out my work week. Why I think it's the most important is because of the potential. Never before have we had a tool to help people figure out their purpose, figure out how to make money with their purpose, and then teach you how to be an entrepreneur. Those three things have just unlocked for the human race. And I think there's just unlimited potential with where we're heading of being able to come up with some great value and put it in front of the marketplace in the shortest time ever that it takes.
So what are some things that you're doing with AI that can create value in a short period of time to help your clients see what's the potential for them?
Well, as you said, a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, they're busy running their business. And if you say, hey, you should download this app and check it out, they're going to, their eyes are going to roll back in their head. So what I really offer is a hand holding into the process. I set up my strategy calls with business owners, and what used to take my marketing agency, 6 weeks to do audience research, foundational, industry trend reports, and being able to get that competitor mapping, the deep dive into their audience's, pain points, challenges, obstacles, stopping them from getting to their dream outcome themselves. I just interview them, take their inherent wisdom, what they know about their business, and being able to take that voice, bring it over to voice to text, and then plug it right into ChatGPT. They just kick back and get interviewed while I get to in real time use what I call mega prompts to take that good data, leverage it with AI, and then produce a living document that's 50 to 100 pages of everything about their business, the deep dive audience research. Now with ChatGPT Pro, I'm able to use that, deep research button and tell it to go out, get real-time market data that used to be reserved for, Fortune 500 companies. this information now is able to be, gathered and processed and simplified for business owners, small business owners, and solopreneurs themselves that couldn't afford the 500,000 price tag that McKinsey firm charged for their business strategies. All this information can now be consolidated. I call it a living document because once we're done, in a 2-hour, 4-hour session, they get this document. All they need to do is then upload it themselves to ChatGPT, and they can ask it whatever they want. And ChatGPT has everything it needs to produce really good outcomes.
It's interesting that you're doing that because I've been using an app called Lovable, and I'm using it to develop my software that I mentioned to you previously. That's for expense management. And what I realized was the tools of tomorrow have to all be intelligent. And what that means is you need data and it has to be connected to an AI so that the AI can help you analyze it. And so one of the first things I did with my expense management tool was once I knew people could import data, I connected ChatGPT 4.0 to it so that people could then access that data and communicate with it. Because what's the point of managing your expenses if you're just a single human looking at it? But if you have an AI looking at it, they can possibly go much further. There's a potential for me to develop an agent-based system that could see the things that you need to cut and maybe go and cancel them for you, or renegotiate with other vendors, or help you find potential replacement vendors for the people that you're working with now. And that frees you up from having a human or 2 or 3 or 5 humans that are just trying to cut your costs. An AI could do it for a fraction of the price. And by embedding that system into the application, it's a no-brainer that this is something that probably doesn't exist in any other application out there. Or if it does, you have to pay thousands of dollars a month to get access to it, where I can offer it for quite a much lower price because I have no cost, because it cost me $50 to make this application in a week. So I agree, AI is a very fascinating thing. I am amazed at how easy it is for someone like myself to build things with it. And by empowering your clients, it's an amazing way to help them get a leg up on their competitors. So I think it's a really cool business model that you have.
Yeah, once they see the practical use, right? You can't throw a bunch of data at a business owner and expect them to take action. But once you are able to give them that data and be like, ask it for a email marketing campaign for this upcoming, spring sale, it will then be able to produce that immediately for them, high quality, integrating their voice. And that's where they get to see the practical application of like, oh, this saves me a lot of time and a lot of people that I was paying, quite handsomely to accomplish.
Something interesting that I thought of while you're saying that was, if you have access to expense data, you could potentially query ChatGPT to go, hey, based on these expenses and based on the tariffs that are going on, predict for me how my expenses are going to change based on that. And it could go, well, you may see an increase in $50,000 a month in your expenses. And you could see it before it happens. And you're like, oh, crap. Now, hey, ChatGPT, how do I have to change my expenses to mitigate that increase so that I can stay in business? Because the 50K increase in my expenses with no increase in my revenue is going to cause me to die immediately. Like there's no profitability anymore based on that kind of a model. So that's what I'm hoping people will do with it, is like get proactive about managing their expenses. Because I think the problem with accounting software in particular is that you have your money coming in and your money going out. And so the accountant just wants to see what's your P&L. But your P&L, I think, is part of the is a whole, where expense management is a part of that whole. And if you can't see the part, then you can't separate it from what's going on. And so it's harder for you to get control over what your profit actually is. So that's one of the things that I've been really excited about with AI, is being able to get financially responsible, trying to understand what's going on.
Businesses need to be able to pivot and, adapt to the marketplace and, the tariffs that are going on. Those that can will, come out stronger. Those that can't, right the ship fast enough, they're dead. And, they've kind of been propped up for the last 20 years for outsourcing, those things to China. And they've been, having a higher profit margin for making those decisions. So this is now, righting the ship, or, making things more competitive to those that can be innovative. And AI is a huge tool, as you described, to be able to keep up.
How do you determine whether you're going to take on a client or not? And how do you determine which of your clients will actually use what they've paid for after they're done working with you?
That's a really good question. I have had some where they're like, this is great. And then they get back into the old habit of doing things, right? And just kind of forget about, what I built them. How I'm able to keep it relevant and useful in their lives, I offer ongoing retainer. And so kind of acting like an accountability coach, they can buy an hour of my time either each week or buy it by once every 2 weeks. And I basically just show up. We call it a work party. I can get things done really fast with AI, as my sidekick. And then at the end, I give them homework, review this stuff, make some decisions. And then next week we'll come back and we'll build the next step. So a little bit of hand holding, right? Keeping them with that forward moving progress, not letting them waste the investment that they just took in me. And then through that process, right? It's inevitable that I end up training them to, not need me anymore, which is totally fine because there's plenty of entrepreneurs out there that, need this assistance. So I'm happy to get them up and going. And then, they can have access to me in my courses and libraries, as needed.
I think it's an interesting model. I love this idea of accountability and ongoing support because you sell them once on the core service. And then if they need you, they just keep paying you. And if they don't need you, that's fine. And also the idea of making yourself redundant is hilarious because that's the whole purpose of AI. No matter how much anyone says, AI is not going to be implemented into my business in order to remove humans. Yeah, no, you're wrong or you're lying because everyone, especially in this kind of a climate, is going to fire people and look to replace them with humans, or they're building AI systems that will allow them to fire those humans. So if you say that AI is not going to get rid of people from your business, you're lying through your teeth. And if you're not thinking like that, I'm sorry, you're taking the wrong look. You're looking at AI incorrectly because what is the point of AI? It's to make things easier. It's to make things faster. It's to automate things. And if you're not doing it for that, then that's wrong. But if you take your people and you find ways to put them onto other things, then that's also great because then you are making them do something that's more valuable than the AI can do right now, or needs human input or something like that. So you don't have to fire people, but
the oversight, right? You need your expert team to oversee what AI is doing, right? And so teaching them to manage, multiple agents that are coming, later this year, so that they, are able to control an army of getting things done instead of them actually like doing the work, right? Because we just saw image generation just like rock the design industry. And it was Alex Hormozy actually who like flipped my brain on teaching clients to basically outgrow you. I was running a marketing agency and I really deep inside felt like unfulfilled and depressed because I would get clients, I'd get them successful, and then they would basically, go in house and just take what I, built and then leave my marketing agency. And I was like, man, why can't I just retain clients? And Hormozy pointed out, he's like, that's not the job of a marketing agency. The marketing agency is for people to level up until they can gain those skills and teach it to their team. And then they level up again and teach those skills to their internal team. So once I like understood that, like, oh, I'm just part of that process. I'm not supposed to, have a forever contract with them because, everything, especially now with AI, can be figured out how to do. And teaching your internal team is a lot cheaper than waiting for remote help.
What are some things that you're excited about in the industry?
I have a marketing background. I've picked up skills, for the last 10 years, a little bit of everything. I'm pretty dangerous as far as, helping people with their online presence. But, graphic design and, copywriting, those are like high level skills that were, not in my skill set. I'm a great construction worker and, operator to help with the direction of teams. But with this new image generation, I have been waking up at 4 a.m. like multiple times over the last week, so inspired to rebrand my own personal brand. I go by the Holistic Tech Wizard, right? And being able to really get what's in my head and to be visually told on my websites, on my social media, all the way through with this coherent style and story and experience that is just groundbreaking for me. And I've been waking up. I'm like redesigning my websites, all because of this new image generation that you get to like tell this story in such fine degree that was very expensive beforehand. Never could really communicate that to another designer. Now I'm just cranking out images until it hits right.
Hey, just give me 10 seconds of your time. I really appreciate you listening to the episode so far, and I hope you're loving it. And if you are, I would love to ask you to subscribe to the channel, because what we do is a lot of work, and every week we bring you a new guest and a new story, and what we do requires so much love so that we can bring you something amazing. And every week we're trying really hard to get better guests that have better stories and improve our ability to tell their stories. So your subscription lets the algorithm know that what we're doing is fantastic, and no commitment, it's free to do. And if you don't like what we're doing later on, you can always unsubscribe. And either way, we would love a like if you don't feel like subscribing at this time. Thank you very much, and we'll take you back. So the last time I redid my website for We Live to Build, I paid almost $4,000. And then it cost me another $500 or $600 to get someone to implement the design into the website. Now with Lovable, I can literally give it a prompt and it will generate the website and the content inside the website for me in 2 minutes for free. So I was able to build a brand new version of my website, and I asked it to pull content from the old page. It's beautiful. I haven't pushed it yet because like I'm on WordPress and it hasn't created a WordPress theme, and I don't think it can, but it has a lot nicer elements and it's a lot better. The only problem is it doesn't have a blog management system. So I would have to have Lovable create a blog management system for me to be able to do it, which I've gotten it to create a blog page and blog post templates and themes for me. But I haven't gotten it to create a back-end blog management system where instead of me telling Lovable to add this blog in, I'd actually go and input the information into the management system on the back end of the website. So I've avoided doing that part because it's just adding noise to building an app. But I'm excited by Lovable's ability to generate websites from scratch, pretty much.
Yeah. Do you also kind of experience the AI curse of like instantly getting 80% there? And then you're like, all right, just got to, just make a couple little changes and this thing's like perfect. And then that last 20% ends up taking like an hour or more, just trying to like fine tune the last, get it over the end zone.
Yeah, that's what happened with my ChatGPT integration, because it gave me everything that I wanted, but then I started to look at the design and I was like, this isn't very professional for the design. I can make it better. So then I started looking at ChatGPT, because I was looking at like a bot, like a chat integration. So I was looking at ChatGPT and Lovable's chat systems, how they looked. And I was like, yeah, I need shadows. I need, the scroll to the bottom. Like it didn't give me a lot of the stuff that those others have. And I was like, okay, well, I've got to add these things and I've got to center them. And okay, well, now the button's too high. I've got to make it lower. And there's a scroll bar on the page. 2 hours. But then it was fine. Because you have to go, well, I need the container to be at the top of the page so the text looks like it's going through the nav bar, right? So you have to get a little technical with the, why is the margins are too wide? Change the margins on it. Oh, the chat, the text input area is locked to the container. So when the page scrolls, the text input area is going with it. So we've got to separate them so it has a static position instead of a relative position. So you have to get a little more technical with the prompting so that it knows how to fix what you want. But once you get that last 20% done, it's gorgeous and it works perfectly, so nothing out of the box, but the coding and the functionality is almost perfect out of the box, but it's the tweaking that makes it nice and usable.
Yeah, I tell everybody, think of a formula of 10-80-10, right? 10% is you and your initial idea and creativity. Then you put it into AI, boom, 80% gets produced. And then there's always that, human touch at the end. Be prepared for. Sometimes it expands into, 40%. But once you like understand that process and expect it, then you don't get disappointed, you don't get frustrated or think that like you can't do it, right? But you just kind of push through it, and then it gets better, and then you get to get it over the target.
So I don't know what size companies you're working with, but I'll just share something that I've seen for fun, I guess, that people like myself are building MVPs in days for practically free, so that investors are not necessary anymore. And I've seen other startup founders going and telling each other like, oh, I want to raise funds. Like, why do you need funds? Like, why can't you just spend your time to get your customers now that you've built it, and then get them to pay you? Like, why isn't everybody bootstrapping businesses now? Why do we need angels? Why do we need family and friends? Why do we need investors? Are you hearing anything about that? Seeing anything about that? Is that relevant to any of the businesses you're working with?
My sweet spot is like micro businesses and like solopreneurs. I really like, wellness coaches because they can build so quick, right? And just get an offer up in front of people. And yeah, there is like no investment needed nowadays. And the time it takes has never been shorter from idea to getting this idea in front of the marketplace to see how it reacts. Cause that's really, the decider at the end of the day. So being able to shortcut all these hurdles that used to, require investments and other people, contractors to like, just to get up and running to see if the market is interested is gone. And that's why I'm so excited to help people find their purpose, figure out, where they can make money doing this. This is the time of just hyper niche, right? Where the more smaller of a market that you can think of servicing, the easier it is for people to find you and to like be that guy or that lady. So I really love working with people that are, trying to get out of the 9-to-5 grind, saying, I really love this and I'm good at this, and then figuring out, how to make a business doing it.
Because I guess I originally thought you were working with companies that are more established and a bit more legacy that are looking to modernize, but I guess that also makes sense. I think it's easier. So as we kind of said at the beginning of the interview, it's harder when you have to educate, but if they're younger people, then it's easier because they're a little more aware that something's possible. They just don't know how to get started, is what I'm guessing.
That's the most like exciting to work with because it does take a bit more hand holding, but once I can train them to, use AI, it can fill out a lot of those blank spots on the entrepreneurial map for them that they can avoid the pain and growth it took me, 10 years to get up and running.
You gave me an idea to teach people like one-on-one how to use Lovable to build MVPs.
You can coursify it too. So, it doesn't have to be you. Just use the first run through with having a live audience. That's how I like to do it because you get that direct feedback of, people's questions and being able to build that week by week in front of them. Right. And then pivot and adapt with a live audience produces the high quality in the first shot. Then you got a product you can, just put up there and people can buy that product, $500, $2,000. I heard this the other day. If you charge more than $1,500, you're going to need a sales team. So by just charging $1,500, that's, a sweet spot that people will be like willing to take a risk and invest into that without you getting bogged down with, needing to expand into a team.
I heard 2,000, but I'm talking to a LinkedIn coach who has a 7-figure business and he coaches 7-figure businesses. So they're thinking slightly bigger.
I really like to build in public. So, this whole rebranding that I'm doing because of image generation, right? I'm now going through this process myself, utilizing it and outlining how to turn this into a course essentially, because why not teach others, right? Through my own trial and errors. And so getting multiple outcomes with all your actions so that, you're not just building an app, but you just showed how to do it. at the same time, and that might end up bringing in more revenue than whatever it is that you're building.
For you, there's the course can be something that's people who want to learn but don't have the money to pay for handholding. They'll pay for the course, and then some people will go through the course and then they'll want to work with you because they're like, okay, I have all this information, but I don't have I don't want to do it myself. Um, and so you may have people that just want the service. You have some people that might just want the course. You have someone that gets the course and decides to upgrade into the service. And so there's a lot of value there.
DIY, do it with you, and then do it for you. They all have different price points.
I hadn't really thought of making a course for this. I had an idea for a course for something else. I decided to drop it after doing some research and talking to founders because I realized that they were broke and they couldn't afford to pay for the course, let alone the service. And I was like, I'm not going to waste my time on that. And unfortunately, those are the ones that need the most help. But yeah, I got to pay my bills. I got to feed my family. I can't do that with clients who don't have the money to pay. But something like this could be interesting, especially now that my podcast is starting to grow up.
Yeah, the course creation process has gotten a lot easier in the last 2 years, right? Obviously, there's AI that can help with overview, can help with modules, breaking down script for each one. But then the actual recording process, right? I use Loom. Loom has like a built-in visual editor. So I just hit record, share my screen, go through the process. And then afterwards, it removes fillers. I can delete sentences, and it automatically updates the video. So the whole capturing process is incredibly easy. You don't need to toss it to a video producer. And we now have AI, which is getting pretty good at mimicking voice. Pretty good avatars coming around. And so if there's educational parts that can, just have a talking head and you introduce your new AI sidekick, it can do a lot of the legwork and just produce the content that needs to be said so that you are on screen even less.
I don't know how I would do it, but it is interesting. It's definitely something to consider. I don't know how many people are out there promoting Lovable in particular, but it's a fantastic app. It's changed my life. So yeah, it's definitely something for me to look at. So tell me, what's something that we haven't talked about that you feel people should know?
Well, wellness and AI has been a surprising, huge benefit into my life. I've been able to use AI. I kind of overshare with it. I'm testing this stuff out to see where the edges are, seeing its capabilities for my clients and my audience. But being able to, use it for helping with communication with, close loved ones and things like that. I'm a big proponent of nonviolent communication, which is, how to frame words so that it's not coming across as, triggering, right? So I can get into, a argument with my wife. It builds up, builds up, builds up. I'm like, I need a break. I can go out and I can just swear at my ChatGPT and get the frustration out, right? And then it will reflect back to me beautifully like, hey, man, it sounds like you're, really upset about this. You might be needing this. And it does a really good job to where I get heard. Helps with my clarification. And then it will give me like, here, go back to your wife and like, tell her this so that it's not coming across as aggressive and, spiking the whole conversation back up. So for communication, for self-discovery and being able to, examine your life and help find, I call it, this one prompt I did was told it to examine my memories and past conversations and find hidden negative loops that it can observe me in. And what it put out like shook me up for like 2 days. It was such a cold, hard, like blunt truth that I was, speechless. And then I went and visited my buddy after that. And I like read it to him. And he's like, dude, if you spent 2 years in therapy and got that as a result, that would have been time worth and money worth spent. He said, I've known you for like, 15 years and that was 98% accurate. So being able to use this thing, kind of as a therapist, as like a relationship coach, these things can really help out, the aspects in your life where, the messy parts happen. And, some things, my wife's great and all, and I do, confide a lot into her. We're also raising a kid, right? She's got her own business. And so having that time that, I can actually, vent and be heard and get, reflection and feedback is not always available. So being able to have a little sidekick to be able to help with that process, some things you don't want to like talk to other people about. Exploring your own vulnerabilities is hard. So having that unbiased look at things has been a huge game changer for me.